Blessed to be with you. Don't forget, KIDO Talk Radio is available for free everywhere on the KIDO Talk Radio app. More information on our website where you can submit your girl with her gun. Girls with Guns 2019 brought to you by Independence Indoor Shooting, located in beautiful Meridian, Idaho. Joining us now, Chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, our great friend, Senator Mike Crapo. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin.
And how you been?
Well, been doing well. You know, it's a constant battle here, but I continue to like the fact that we're making progress in the right direction on a lot of fronts. So it's not as good as I'd like it to be, particularly since the last election where we got slowed down a bit. But, you know, facts are we're still doing good things.
Well, we are, Senator, and we appreciate you. Let's get to some of the meat of the topics here. Last week, a big movement. I saw you on the front pages of all the financial websites concerning the bankers and the weed dispensaries, and possibly the banks want to get a hold of the weed money. Your thoughts?
Yes, as you know, there are increasing numbers of states that are legalizing marijuana either completely or partially for medical purposes. And those industries that are now legal in those states, except for the fact that there is a federal ban on marijuana, are saying that they should be allowed to at least bank what is a legal industry in their state, because right now, because of the federal law, the risk is too high for financial institutions to provide banking services to these companies. And that is driving the entire industry in these states into a cash economy, which then promotes money laundering and, you know, infiltration by those who cartels and others.
Yeah.
So it's a real issue. It's a big issue, and I've consistently said that as long as it's illegal under federal law, it's really hard to resolve this. But I agreed that we'd hold a hearing and study it, and frankly, we may be able to find a way to resolve some of these issues so that we don't actually import greater crime into the United States as a result of these laws in the states.
Senator Crapo, you're a conservative, you're a Republican, you're a patriot. When we go back to the decision by the previous administration not to enforce federal law, opening up Pandora's box. Now you've got the cartels with the money laundering and the legalization of this. I totally agree with you. We support the governor here. You know, this is against federal law, and yet this is allowed to happen. Just from an objective constitutional point, what do you make of that?
Well, it's an anomaly, if you will, an irony that President Obama did a very similar thing in the immigration arena, which is a big part of the reason we have the problem at the border we have right now. So when we do not enforce federal law, it creates serious problems. And I believe that one of the strengths that President Trump has shown is that he's willing to try to go back and start enforcing the law in these different arenas. Now, he has not done so in the cannabis arena. I think that's partly because the issue needs to be engaged at a federal level. We now have over 33 states that have moved into the arena of legalizing some form of this at their levels, and it looks like it's going to go up even higher. In fact, Idaho is one of only 3 states that hasn't even done much at all. And if nothing else, the hemp industry, which is legal now under federal law, needs to be able to be resolved in this context. So I don't know. It's a very tough issue, but the bottom line is we're much better off if federal law is enforced. That being said, it may be that the right thing to do in the cannabis arena is to recognize states' rights and have the federal law adjusted so that the states are able to make these determinations. I'm not saying that is what we should do. I'm just saying that this is a very, very complex issue that needs to be resolved.
No, I'm with you, sir. And like you said, it's ironic because when it came to marriage, all of a sudden the federal law was enforced and went to the Supreme Court. But I digress. So this is right in your wheelhouse, and we've had a good economy. So your warnings probably haven't been heeded, which they should. It looks like this new report, America to borrow $1.23 trillion in the year 2019. We're also looking at the Fed possibly cutting the rate and record government spending, this time under a Republican. Where do we start, Senator Crapo, here on KIDO Talk Radio?
Well, we are seeing exactly what you and I have talked about consistently over the years, and that is that the spending at the federal level is continuing to skyrocket at levels faster than the growth of the economy. And it's going to happen under any president, Republican or Democrat, until we deal with mandatory spending. You know, actually, the president has been pretty good, in fact, quite good, on fighting to keep budgets down. But as we've talked, the president and Congress can only change about 30 to 40% of the budget, with 60% plus of the budget just running on autopilot. And until we get the votes in the Senate to get 60 votes to change our entitlement system and put it under some fiscal restraint, we're just going to see this happen. And each president can be attacked because under their watch it goes up. But it's not something the presidents are doing right now. This is something that Congress and the president together have to all come together on, and in a supermajority way in the Senate. And that's the problem. That is the core of the problem right there.
Senator Crapo joining us now. Let's talk a little bit about our economic danger if we continue borrowing. And, we remember what happened with Greece. We remember what happened with a lot of folks. So what are we looking at as far as the impact it could have on average, ordinary Idahoans?
Well, it's something you and I have talked about before, and it's still true. The fact is, as our debt mounts, that has impacts on our overall economy in terms of slowing it down, and it has impacts on individual families and wage earners and investors and everybody. And we're starting to see those headwinds very significantly. It'll happen. We cannot just choose not to end up dealing with the same kind of crisis that Greece did if we continue down this road. Our Federal Reserve has gone to extreme measures to try to stabilize our debt structure in the financial markets. They can't keep propping it up by basically printing money. We have got to face this issue, and we can do it in a number of ways. We've got to control the entitlement system. That's the key thing we have to do. We've done a number of things in the last 3 years that are very critical. That is, we have reduced the regulatory burdens that have significantly unchained our economy, and we have reformed our tax code that has, contrary to the reporting on it, has generated a much stronger economy and a much greater source of revenue to the Treasury to help deal with this. But in the bottom line here, we're going to have to deal on the revenue side and the spending restraint side, or we're going to face serious consequences when we get to that tipping point.
Senator Mike Crapo joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. You mentioned it earlier, the crisis concerning the immigration, the border. Bad news going on there, sir. You're concerned. You've been concerned for years. You and the Republicans want to get something done. What's impeding the progress?
Well, it's a constant battle. It's kind of similar to the battles we're having over health care, and that is those who want to have an open border and those who like myself, who want to have us have a rational and fair immigration system, who believe we should have a rule of law and that we should not incentivize illegal immigration. And that's not anti-immigration. That's saying we want, like every other country, to have a system of law that governs how those outside of our country are admitted to our country. And the problem we have is that there has been first a policy adopted by President Obama, which was then essentially cemented by some court cases and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, cementing some policies that allow unaccompanied minors and accompanied minors to come across the border, claim asylum, and then be able to not only stay in the United States, but be released into the United States without much restraint. Without much ability to track them and to find them and get them to come back for their asylum hearings. And As a result, we're seeing just an absolute explosion. It's almost become an industry and a practice to bring children to the border, rent children in some cases, in order to get to the border and get across the border, and then just overwhelm our system. And we need to fix it. The humanitarian situation at the border is challenging and is a serious problem, but it's not a result of an unwillingness to treat people properly. It is just an explosion of the number of people who are coming across, overwhelming the system, and we need to resolve it.
Senator Crapo, we've resolved our time. I know Congress will be out, but you're hitting the ground running, lots of town hall meetings. You don't take any time off, and we sure appreciate you, sir.
Well, I look forward to seeing you and others out there in Idaho. If we get a chance, I'll try to drop in, although it's going to be a busy run.
Well, you're always on the trail. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Our great friend, Senator Crapo, joining us. Coming up next, one prominent media person and a member of one of the last few Democratic administrations says, quote, anyone who votes for Trump is a racist. Oh, my. Plus the latest on the Capital One data breach, how it impacts you next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
You actually, and I'm going to read your tweet, anyone who supports a racist or a racist strategy is a racist themselves. 2020 is a moment, a reckoning for America. Vote for Donald Trump and you are a racist. Don't hide it like a coward. Wear that racist badge proudly and see how it feels. I'm going to read the sentence again. Vote for Donald Trump and you're a racist. Americans who vote for the president because, let's say, they are firmly pro-life. They are racist because they believe he's right on that issue, and whomever the eventual Democratic nominee is pro-choice. That pro-life voter is a racist because they vote for Donald Trump?
I think so. I think racism only exists because it's supported. If people didn't support racism, you wouldn't have racists. And I think this election is different than 2016. We got lots of hints from Donald Trump in 2016 that he was a bigot.
There we have it. Joe Lockhart. Joe Lockhart, that name sounds familiar. He used to be the White House press secretary for William Jefferson Clinton. He's the guy that gave us the White House press secretary daily briefing and put it on television, right? Boy, do you see how they attack us? And, of course, with liberal Joe Biden coming to town, what's next? By the way, have you ever heard, and maybe this happened when, who was the bigwig that came to town? Paul Ryan or something else. So maybe it's a bipartisan boondoggle that these big national figures, no, it was Rubio, wasn't it? When Rubio came to town, Senator Rubio, that you had to pay money to find out the secret location. Now, the Republicans are so detached and they don't need the money that you even you could pay the money and not get a invitation. It's sad that you have, whether it's a senator running for president, as it was with Senator Rubio, or Joe Biden running for president, that it's all about the money. You know, in Iowa and New Hampshire, and to a degree, probably a far lesser degree in South Carolina, although they continue to try to work their way in, they get time with these presidential candidates. They go one-on-one with Kamala Harris or whomever. That's really what we need. We don't need a symposium at Boise State. I think we've covered Boise State in the last few weeks, right? We don't need to pay $100 to go see Joe Biden. By the way, Joe Biden must need the money that he's coming here. We're kind of off the route. But we'll see. And again, I love how the Democrats say, you have to give us $100 to find out where it is. Now, that doesn't guarantee that you get in. $1,000 you get in. $2,500 you get a picture with old Joe. Now, for $2,500, we could fly to Iowa or New Hampshire, enjoy some great maple syrup, and get a picture with Joe Biden for free. And you get a good vacation out of it. You get to see how people east of the Great River live. Crazy times, crazy times. Coming up, a warning for congressional Democrats. But this is an issue that impacts all of us, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. And here we go. You have a Capital One card in your wallet? Well, apparently, they've been hacked. A massive data breach that has exposed possibly your information to about 100 million Americans and 6 million Canadians. By the way, as we disclosed earlier, if you missed it, Equifax, go to equifaxsettlement.com. Over half the country has been impacted by that. You log on, you put your information in, and you could get $125 back. Doesn't really help you if you've been data breached and assaulted that way, but at least they're paying you some money. So the hacker with Capital One managed to snag 140,000 social security numbers, 80,000 bank account numbers, personal information from credit card applications over the last 14 years. Now, the good news, the FBI has arrested that person. So if you are a Capital One customer, go to the website and get the information on the data breach. And let's face it, how many of us have ever been scammed or hacked? Of course, we were hacked very recently here. Coming up next, one state has said to its troops, to its people, that the semi-automatic rifle is not protected under the Second Amendment. We'll tell you that state first. Coming up next, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And I'm Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Think about this, that here you have this data breach with over, thousands of people impacted by this. And these credit card companies are supposed to keep everybody safe, and that isn't happening. Now, building upon that, you have a federal judge in California ruled last week that banning semi-automatic rifles is not a violation of the right to keep and bear arms as afforded by the Second Amendment. U.S. District Judge Josephine Stanton, an Obama appointee, ruled that under current state law, banning the ownership, manufacture, or sale of semi-automatic rifles and the bullet buttons that alter a conventional rifle into a rapid-fire weapon could happen, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. The judge called the rifles incredibly effective killing machines that are not needed for self-defense. Well, I am so happy that a judge is an expert on what is and what is not an effective means of self-defense. Does the right to keep and bear arms say the right to self-defense? No, it says the right to keep and bear arms. Again, thank you, Obama, for this judge. The judge decided that semi-automatic rifles should be deemed dangerous and unusual weapons that are used in military service, not civilian homes, and therefore not protected by the Second Amendment. Now, remember, this is what the devious little libs want. They want a return of the assault weapons ban. Remember when the assault weapons ban was going on, you had police outgunned, outmanned, because the criminals had the AK-47s, right? So imagine this happening in Idaho. I can see why people from California are coming here. The judge continued, citing congressional findings that semi-automatic rifles have a rate of fire 300 to 500 rounds per minute that makes them virtually undistinguishable from machine guns, and that they are the weapons of choice for gangs, hate groups, and mentally deranged people bent on mass murder, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. Now, come on. What are you going to do? Is this going to keep the bad guys out? Didn't we already have this issue when we're talking about a gun-free zone? And gun-free zones, what does that mean? It means we're all sitting ducks. Now, this ruling could go to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We all know about the old Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, right? That's not going to be a good thing. Probably, hopefully, it'll go up to the Supreme Court. But you have a judge saying that a rifle is not covered by the Second Amendment. Silly, silly judge. Thank goodness we have the First Amendment and the ability to appeal that ruling. Coming up, do want to remind you on Friday, we will be at the grand opening, the pre-grand opening of Stanton Healthcare, right in Meridian, Idaho, their second branch. Looking forward to having so many people in the Life community joining us there. And again, we are so blessed to be a part of this grand opening. Now, it is on Sunday. You can go to Stanton Healthcare on Facebook, social media, their website, and I do appreciate the hardworking staff led by our friend Brandy Swindell, who continues to promote life, and we are privileged to be a part of it. Join us Friday morning from Stanton Healthcare, the grand opening in Meridian, Idaho. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.9 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Doug.
It ain't never been a rat problem in Baltimore. It's always been a people problem.
Rat Film. Part of Independent Lens on PBS.
There we have it. PBS did a series called Rat Film in 2018. From Independent Lens, it picked up the documentary PBS did, talking about the rat infestation of the city of Baltimore. Look, you have people denouncing the president, calling him racist. You have Joe Lockhart of the Clinton administration saying anyone who voted for the president of the United States is a racist. You have the Democrats who will be debating soon saying that anyone who comes to America will, in fact, get medical benefits. Never mind the veterans, never mind the people that have paid into the system. People that are born here under the Democrat regime, you're second-class citizens. Many years ago, I worked for a young man who now works at Stanford University. He was, and still is, a personal mentor of mine. And this is a guy that worked behind the scenes, and he was undoubtedly, if not the number one reason, the number two reason that I did come here. And he recruited me. He recruited me to come here, and he has given me advice that, unlike any other job that I've ever had in broadcasting and talk radio, not even broadcasting, just talk radio, that has allowed me to keep my job here. And the reason why I share this with you is the advice is something that perhaps the president of the United States could use. And you have many people here in Idaho that are lukewarm to the president. They vote for him because they aren't down with the crazy, wacky, zany libs. I get that. You know, in Idaho, we're very polite, and I still have to work on that day in and day out. East of the Great River or in some of these big western cities, you can be in your face. You can be a shock jock. You can say stupid things. In Idaho, we're about respect, credibility, authenticity. And you have to work harder to earn people's trust. And coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about earning people's trust when it comes to how you say things. Now, again, I'm not telling anybody how to say whatever, but back to the advice of a gentleman who hired me, you can be right, but so what? We'll expand on that in a minute. Fox News Radio, only on KIDO Talk Radio. Tanya J. Powers joining us with a very emotional signing yesterday by the President of the United States. Good morning.
Good morning.
So here we have it. Finally, the 9/11 responders bill has been signed, and we won't have to worry about it expiring for quite some time.
That's exactly right. Looks like this won't expire until 2092, which basically makes it permanent. This was something that, had gotten a lot of attention, especially last month when Jon Stewart came along with some of the victims who had, been diagnosed with different diseases. One of them was, fighting cancer, who passed away a few weeks after that. And they went to Capitol Hill and asked for them to do exactly what was done yesterday, which was to make this permanent so they didn't have to keep coming back every few years and asking for more money.
You as a journalistic chronicle of history, like all of us, you cannot not be impacted by the emotionalism, the symbolism, the sacrifice of the people that served our country during September 11th and afterwards, the burning of the lungs and everything else that permeated throughout Ground Zero for quite some time. But here you have this act of this young man leaving, I believe, two sons behind, the detective that made national waves with his almost last breath, along with Jon Stewart, lobbying Congress to make the funds renew. How would you describe that?
Yeah, it was really emotional to watch that, honestly, because, Luis Alvarez is who you're talking about, and his testimony was so powerful about how many rounds of chemo he had been through. And, you could just look at him and think, wow, okay, listen to this guy. A lot is made of the first responders who ran into the buildings and, pulled people to safety and the heroes that saved people's lives, quite literally, that day. There are a lot of other people who were also involved, who are also in the Victims' Compensation Fund. A lot of them are students, or were students at the time. There were like 10,000 students below a certain, in the Ground Zero area when 9/11 happened. And matter of fact, during that same hearing where Jon Stewart was, one of them, who was she was a student at Stuyvesant High School at the time, she actually testified about that, and about how, they're still relatively young people. I mean, you think about somebody who was in, like a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, or in high school when it happened. These are folks who should not be, having life-threatening, illnesses diagnosed to them when they're in their, 30s, their late 20s, early 30s, late 30s. That seems, but that's what's indeed happening, according to what she was saying, that some of her classmates have, been diagnosed with things like, some of the cancers that we've heard of from other people that, worked and had to deal with the debris and stuff. She said they were back in their school a month after 9/11 happened. Way before they should have been, because the building was not thoroughly cleaned and there was still, dust from the towers and the venting systems. I mean, it's, just the stories that you hear from these people who've told about these things, it's unfathomable. So the fact that now they don't have to come back any longer and keep asking for the money over and over is a relief, obviously. And it's obviously a very good thing, because their benefit payments aren't going to be cut, because they were having to cut them by about 70% in some cases. So the people who were diagnosed later weren't getting the same amount of a benefit as the ones who had been diagnosed earlier, simply because the fund was running out of money.
Right.
So this should take care of that.
No, indeed. And having been there 3 weeks after and doing my show from there, Ground Zero was still burning 3 weeks after. And the burning, I don't know how you describe it. It was just, the air was just not right. And you couldn't imagine. Could you imagine that, you being a high school kid, and a month after this horrible attack, you're there going back to school in that environment?
Yeah, and that's what she said. She said, the ventilation system still had dust in it. They just tried to get them to back to normal as quickly as they could. Yeah. And I guess, at that point, nobody was thinking, in 20 years or in 15 years or whatever, you're going to have people who are, a lot sooner than that, who are, diagnosed with these illnesses and cancers and things. It would be hard to get your head around that, I guess, at the time. But she said, and they were right where the dump trucks were coming in and out, taking, debris out of the pile, as they called it. So they would have more dust in their school, on a continual basis, because that's the route that they were, taking to clean that stuff up. And it's not just, the students. You got a lot of people who work down there. You got a lot of people who live down there. And those are the people that the Victims' Compensation Fund were, trying to get the word out to let them know, even last year, hey, even if you haven't been, diagnosed with anything yet, you should probably get on this registry, so to speak, of people who were working there or living down there or whatever. So they would kind of already know, okay, these are the kind of numbers we're dealing with that could be potentially, enlisted in something if they are diagnosed with something.
Well, we're glad that's taken care of, and obviously we'll continue to pray for those folks. Tanya J. Powers, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And like I said, can you imagine going to high school, the best years of your life during that? And I can tell you that being at Ground Zero 3 weeks after, the site was still burning, the air, your eyes watered, your mouth, your throat, you started feeling inflamed there. It was an incredible sadness. And now that's been taken care of. Thankfully, the president, the Congress, did the right thing, and we're very happy about that. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget, you can always catch us on the KIDO Talk Radio app. And as we were talking about earlier, so the President of the United States, by the way, he's got a great quote today. They said, going after him about Elijah Cummings, calling him a racist, calling him everything else. The President said, well, maybe Elijah Cummings should investigate Baltimore. Maybe he should investigate his own district and find out why millions of dollars aren't helping those areas. And for years we see it. We see it in Seattle. We see it in Chicago. Now we see it in Baltimore. The President made his point. Did the President go too far in his language? I'll let you decide on that. And back to my friend. And many of you, a good friend of mine, goes, man, I remember when you first came on, nothing was good, nothing was right, and I loved it. It was almost 10 years ago next month. And it was something new, it was something provocative, but you have to make sure that you balance that. And this young man who hired me, he goes, dude, you can be right, but so what? So what? And you see what the president here, he's right. But if he had said it in a different way, and I know Donald Trump is Donald Trump, if he said it in a different way, would it be more effective? Obviously, they would still be attacking him, but isn't he giving them some ammunition? Isn't he making their case? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Now, do you know who Rahm Emanuel is? Rahm Emanuel used to work for Obama, a congressman, the mayor of Chicago, a very, very smart political mind. With these Democratic debates rolling for the next few days, Rahm Emanuel has given some advice to the crazy, wacky, zany libs. He's saying the opportunity is here, but you're losing the swing voters. Now, let me see if you agree with this. He writes in something called Medium, this time, don't fall into traps that have many of us shaking our heads during the debates in Miami. Before our party promises health care coverage to undocumented immigrants, or as we like to say, illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, a position not even Ted Kennedy took. Remember, Kennedy was the liberal lion of the Senate, beloved in the state of Massachusetts, beloved by everybody who wasn't related to the dearly departed Mary Jo Kopechniak. Let's help the more than 30 million Americans who are single, who are a single illness away from financial ruin. Before we start worrying about whether the Boston Marathon bomber can vote, let's stop states that are actively trying to curtail voting rights of citizens. Well, we call that voter ID laws, but anyway. And before we promise a guaranteed minimum income to healthy adults who prefer to stay home and play video games, let's increase the minimum wage and the earned income tax credit to benefit the millions of people who work hard and still live near poverty. This is from one of the most liberal Democrats around, seeing what's happening to the Democratic Party, right? Seeing what's happening to the Democratic Party. Remember, let's give the undocumented immigrants, the illegal immigrants, health care. We're going to pander to an electorate that can't vote. And 30 million Americans are a single illness away from financial ruin because they get sick. Wasn't Obamacare supposed to handle that? Thank you, Obama. And giving the Boston Marathon bomber the right to vote? Are you crazy? Emanuel understands this. This is why the president, no matter what the Democrats say about him, no matter what the charges are of he and Elijah Cummings, he's winning. And here's another one. How uncomfortable is it that the president's language is giving a whole lot of attention to the inner city congressional districts that the Democrats have let whittle away for many, many years? Now, again, we might not agree with the substance and the style, but the message is there, right? Love to get your thoughts. Why don't you join the conversation now? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, Ray Amaya. Appreciate that. Joe Biden coming to town. It'll cost you $100 to figure out where he's going to be. Blessed to be with you. Don't forget the KIDO Talk Radio app and no third-party services. Just go to Google Play, go to the App Store, and type in KIDO Talk Radio, and boom, 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 you get the free app. And let me just say, let me just ask your permission. So many people assume, so many people feel entitled to space on your phone or in your car. We try to work to earn that. It's amazing the difference between incentive and entitlement. We'd like to earn that place on your phone. We understand. And you know, you have people that, hey, I went across the street. There's an alert. Even, you know, Fox News and everything else, or if you have like Twitter notifications, sometimes you're going, man, One American News. Okay, I get it. 7 tweets within 30 seconds. I think we have everything covered. Or at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning or whatever in the morning, there's the president going at it again. He truly is working for us. If you are just waking up, phone numbers, you know them, but asking to comment on this story concerning Elijah Cummings, people condemning the president. Like I said, I love what the president said. Look, hey, man, why don't you go investigate your district and why it's not a good place to live, allegedly. That's one topic. The other topic coming up, Meridian has said, since the state of Idaho will not pass a law designed to save lives, we're going to do it anyway. You drive through Meridian, if this new law goes into effect, guess what happens? Guess what happens? You get pulled over. If you're on your phone, if you're texting, you get pulled over. Now, the conservatives will say, we don't want that. We don't need no laws. Over 80 wrecks in Meridian alone attributed to people on their phones. I will admit, sometimes I'm a dope, and I'll be at the stoplight looking at my dumb phone. Hey, I might miss something. Hey, there's an Amazon deal. Hey, there's an app alert. Truly, we've become like Pavlov and the dog with the phone. So the logic is, and I applaud the people in Meridian. I'm down with this. I agree with it. I believe the state of Idaho should have a law that's hands-free. Kevin, when I go to Oregon, when I go to Nevada, I feel like I'm in an occupied territory because I don't have the freedom to talk on my phone. Then invest in a Bluetooth. Then invest in an app that will not allow your phone to ring or distract you. Very simple. I mean, you have people driving on any road in all of Idaho, you know, one hand on the wheel, the other hand driving. Our friends at Channel 7, along with a bunch of CEOs, remember that big Channel 7 campaign years ago where they had now departed, which is odd to say, Channel 7 without Carolyn Holly, Channel 7 without Dee Sarton. Doesn't seem like Channel 7 to me. I mean, we've got Larry still, thankfully, and our great friend Doug and Maggie, but, I mean, they did this thing where they're driving around and they're trying to text and they go like 200 yards. So the city of Meridian says, look, man, we understand that the citizens cannot police themselves. We want to have the ability to pull you over. Critics will say, well, we have distracted driving. And that's all we need. I don't really understand the need. And I would think if you were an insurance company and you have big money to support and to back the legislators, I would believe that the insurance company, and that's right. Rehemiah, thank you for reminding me of that. The insurance companies did contact me after the last legislative session, and they said they're so in tune. They go, hey, man, you do some type of show that talks? And I said, yes, Mr. Insurance Company. If you were tied into the community, you'd listen every morning. What time's the show that talks on? That would be in the morning here on KIDO Talk Radio. Well, we'd like to get together with you next time because some people have told us that Kevin Miller and the show that talks, you were in favor of this. And I said, yes, it's about public safety. Now, other people are going to go, no, I want the freedom to be on my phone and to be distracted. Since the public can't police itself, isn't it incumbent upon the state to police us? Ooh, that sounds Orwellian. Your thoughts next. First, KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning, traffic and weather together. Anybody on your phone? Get off your phone. Good morning, Dave. And I am Kevin Miller in the morning. because we aim to please. Rob in Cuna, you've got about 40 seconds. Give it to us. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Well, I just wanted to chime in. We've spoken a couple times before. I drive a truck for a living, and I sit up higher than everybody else. And you wouldn't believe how many people I actually see on the interstate running down the road with the phone in their hand or in their ear. I use a Bluetooth headset anytime I'm on the phone while I'm driving. I think law would be great. I think a statewide law should be in effect.
Rob, great call. Drive safe. Thank you for listening.